So good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining EliteCISOs weekly session that we conduct every Thursday, 11 o'clock India time. I really appreciate you guys taking out time and joining these sessions, right? So as you see on the screen today, we have Idemeum with us and the two most important people from Idemeum, Nick, who is CEO, and Jagjit, CTO from Idemeum. They are joining us today and they will talk about a very important topic around how do you ensure the security of end user or your modern workforce, right? The title is eliminating passwords for the modern workplace. Password we know could lead to multiple type of compromise, and it's always cumbersome to manage. So that's what we'll try to understand from Nick and Jagjit today in terms of how organizations, how CIOs and CISOs can better protect users and ensure that there's a smooth login or smooth authentication process without the passwords, right? How do we eliminate that? So that part will be covered. And then as part of welcome, as I said, quick introduction and all, we will also have a quiz. It's going to be a fastest finger, format. So if you know the answer, go to the chat and quickly put the answer over there. OK. So after the quiz, we will have about 40-45 minutes for Idemeum session. At the end, we will have question answer round. During the session as well, if you have questions, you can put it on the chat and then Idemeum team will answer the questions. But if you want to wait till the end and you want to ask live question, that's also possible. We will save about 10 minutes for that. We will share the password to download your participation certificate. We will have Wheel of Fortune and there will be 2 rounds of Wheel of Fortune, right? One for everyone who registered. Second is the folks who support EliteCISOs post on LinkedIn. So we will have a separate Wheel of Fortune for them. OK, I'll explain it again towards the end. And this session is being recorded. All the recording, all the content go on EliteCISO's YouTube channel as well as website. So you can get it from there as well. And as part of Wheel of Fortune, the giveaway is smartwatch. So we'll give away 5 smartwatches to 5 folks who win. OK, who get lucky. And as you know, we always give this challenge of stand and attend. It might be new for you, Jagjit and Nick, but at EliteCISO, we run a very active fitness community. We try to, influence everybody, share with everyone that, OK, why fitness is very much required, motivate people to join the fitness routine and fitness group as well. So as part of EliteCISO's Elite Fit initiative, just this Sunday, the past Sunday, we had a Bangalore chapter Elite Fit event. We did a 10-kilometer run in a very nice Cubbon Park. This is the picture from there. So if you want to join EliteCISO's fitness group, send me a DM, send me an email. I will add you in that group. And then the group energy, the group motivation will keep you going, right? So and this is again part of the stand and attend challenge as well, because that's again related to fitness. So if you're going to sit, you might have all these problems on the left hand side, as you see. But if you stand while attending the session, at least for this 1 hour, you will have all these better, all these benefits of standing, pain reduction, posture improvement and all. And more than that, you will have better brain function. If you perform better, if your brain is working fast, then you can win in the upcoming quiz. OK, so if you take this challenge, guys, go to the chat and say, yes, we love that energy every time when you share by saying, yes, we are accepting this challenge. That's the group energy that motivates everyone. OK, now get ready for the quiz. Let me quickly see how the chat is going. Is anybody accepting the challenge or not? So just going to the chat window. Let's see if anybody has accepted. So yeah, a lot of people are saying yes. That's great, guys. Thank you very much for sharing your energy. I will keep monitoring chat, and the quiz is fastest finger first. OK, if you know the answer, go to the chat and quickly type the answer, and the winner will get 1,000 rupees Amazon voucher. So here comes the first question. The first question is, name the hacker group that has recently targeted Microsoft, Samsung, Okta, and VDI, right? You have to put the correct name. Awesome. I already see the name coming in. I think Mr. Abhishek Mathur has put the right name. Very, very good. Very, very nice and very fast as well. Great. Thank you, guys. Fast. Yeah. Yeah. and yeah, Lepsus is the right answer. They breached Okta recently. They broke in January. And then Okta did not declare it or made it public, I think, until 22nd of March or something. So that's bad on their part. They also acknowledged it. So Lapsus is the correct answer. Second question is little bit tricky. OK, read it carefully and then give the answer. So the second question is, before initial access, okay, before initial access, which technique did lapses used from MITRE attack metrics during their attack on Microsoft and Okta before getting the initial access? Okay, you have to name that technique from the MITRE framework. No. Social engineering, any which ways, recon, any which ways is there. I still do not see the right answer. Ashish Chandra, I have put, you can select text. I don't know what that means. Regularization, recon, database, no. Social networking, no. Okay, so the answer for this one is account compromise. Okay, why account compromise? If you go to the MITRE attack framework and before initial access, if you look at, so account compromise was one of the one of the technique they used to gain access to the environment, right? Because they had a username and password, they could do a VPN to the environment. So that was the correct answer. I will again go back and check whether somebody answered it right or not. But yeah, most of the people said right. That's why I said it's a tricky question. With this, because account compromise is again related to passwords and all, right? Because passwords are somehow very difficult to manage, and in multiple breaches we have seen that password could lead to the ultimate compromise. So let's hear from Nick and Jagjit. How do we better manage this situation where we don't have to deal with the passwords? Okay, with this, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and over to you, Nick and Jagjit.
Do you see my screen?
We see it now, and if you can go to the slideshow, that will be great.
Awesome. Can you see my slideshow right now? No. 1 second. Let's try one more.
I don't see it in a slideshow format. The slide is still a little smaller.
Let me share my desktop. Yeah. How about now?
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. So thank you so much for introduction. I think that's exciting for us to be here. We represent a company called Idemeum. I see there's a bunch of people from our team on the call, and it's really exciting to see some familiar names. My name is Nick. I am the CEO of the company, and I spent more than a decade in cybersecurity space, ranging from detecting breaches, responding to them, and most recently building identity products. It's always been exciting to see how you investigate a breach and then find the culprit to be a password or account compromised, leading to all the things that happened after. We are extremely excited to work in the passwordless space, and it's really ripe for innovation, and we're solving some of the most interesting problems, we believe. Over to you, Jagjit.
Good morning, everyone. My name is 𝗘𝗟𝗜𝗚𝗏𝗡𝗅. I work as basically a CTO of Idemeum. I have a 20 years of working experience in the Silicon Valley, and I've worked at like various software companies, from software engineer to architect to director of engineering. During this journey, got a lot of experience developing highly scalable systems, identity and access management, and recently at VMware with 7 years of experience building enterprise identity and access management solution, which is pretty much the competition to Okta that VMware has today. So yeah, I think we're super excited. That's where Nick and I met at VMware, and we decided to basically embrace this journey where we felt like there were real problems in the industry that we wanted to solve with respect to passwords and how we move towards passwordless world. So that's where
Thank you. Exciting. So let's go into this. I think the topic is very simple. How do we build a workplace without passwords? So here's what we're going to cover today, and we highly appreciate your time, and we try to basically make it very simple, abstract all the marketing jargon and everything, and talk about the practical things we've discovered in the industry and we've seen other companies and our customers implementing in real world scenarios. So first we'll talk about why even bother about passwords. Then we'll try to establish what passwordless is all about. We'll take a quick look at what technologies actually exist out there. And then we will look into our experience of what the journey to passwordless might look like for a company medium to large size. I think one of the most important pieces for us is talk about passwordless lifecycle, to look at the journey holistically. And then we'll leave some time to take a peek at our platform and just show you very quickly what it is and how it works. So first is, we believe that passwords are a problem. For us, they're like digital waste, and we leave passwords everywhere we go. I think what we wanted to communicate simply is that passwords are insecure, expensive, and they create friction. So there's various numbers and reports out there in the market, and we published a lot of interesting blogs about some of the stats we've been observing over time. But what we wanted to show today is that there's just a tremendous number of attacks going on passwords. To be precise, it's around 580 attacks per second happening in the world today as we speak. And why is that? Because passwords are very insecure, and if you look at the statistics from the field and from the trenches and from investigations, 80% of breaches are actually attributed to password compromises or brute forcing. So that's why having passwords as a primary mechanism for authenticating users is not a very secure mechanism for a company. The second thing is passwords are expensive. So why is that? First of all, passwords need maintenance, right? You rotate them, you distribute them, you generate them, then you help your employees to reset them, and many things that we've been using. What's also very interesting that the industry is incentivizing companies to purchase more products to guard and make passwords better, right? Password resets, reset tools, and separate standalone MFA tools and whatnot. And when the breaches happen, it's very costly for an enterprise to deal with the consequences of passwords. And the last thing is all about the experience, right? Every one of us is using passwords every day. And there's various reports and researches going on when people go and talk to employees. But more than half of modern workforce in the US at least is basically dissatisfied with an idea to memorize yet another password. So we actually live in the world and that's relying primarily on passwords today. So I'm sure a lot of you know this, but the basic way to authenticate anyone today is using one of the three factors, right? Something you know, which is password, something you have, which is something that you possess, your phone or YubiKey or hardware token or something like this, and something you are, which is your biometrics. So today people can challenge me and say there's maybe more factors like behavior signals and whatnot, but this is basically the primary standard in identity of how to authenticate users. And as you can see, we live in the world that's relying on passwords today, but the industry has been moving towards passwordless space, and COVID, for example, incentivized everyone to look closer at MFA, all right, and start bundling something you know, which is your password, with something you have or something you are. So thinking about this, I want to actually define one term with you that has been coined in the industry quite recently, and that term is passwordless MFA, right? If we remove all the jargon and we remove all the marketing collateral away from this term, it's actually doing two simple things. First, it's replacing traditional method of authentication with passwords. They don't actually exist anymore. And the second thing is it's leveraging a combination of certificates and biometrics, right? It's something you have on your device, which is your crypto certificates, and something you are, which is a biometric sensor. So that's why it's called passwordless, because it's no longer using password as a tool or as a factor. And it's called multi-factor because it's combining two other factors, something you have and something you are, to log the users in. So this is the term that recently came up, and it's being used by a lot of vendors in the market, and then they all define it very differently. But the idea is actually very simple, right? Remove passwords from the equation and leverage other factors together. So to contrast, right, today you might be logging in using username and password and then doing a multi-factor authentication via push. With passwordless MFA, you don't have username and password anymore. You just log in with biometrics and certificates, right? This is just a definition to set the context of what the technology is all about. So now let's take a quick look of what's available today, right? This is a little bit of a technical intro. At the end of the day, right, there's a lot of positioning on the market, but behind the scenes, there's a certain set of technologies that's being used to do passwordless. So first is certificates, right? This has been around for quite some time. It's very heavily used in government, in public sector, with certificates and smart cards and whatnot. But the basic idea is you have your clients, mobile or desktop or laptop, and you provision certificates to these devices, and that's how you authenticate users. This is a very old technology. It's been around for a while, but it's not necessarily multi-factor, right? And it's not very easy to enable this technology. Typically, you would have to use device management tools. You'll have to think about how to provision these certificates, maintain your certificate authority, and many, many other things that go along with this. But I think for a long time, it's been considered the gold standard of a strong type of authentication, for example, for US government based on NIST standards. So magic links, and we kind of bundle this with one-time passwords or one-time tokens. This is, in a simple term, this is you proving an ownership of an email or phone to basically log into something, application or resource. This is very prevalent in consumer space, right? And this has been picked up by a lot of financial institutions when they onboard employees and then they verify the ownership of a user. Sometimes it's used as a second factor. But this technology is not very persistent. You have to periodically do it. And obviously it's not very user-friendly because you always have to go to your inbox. Deliverability are the issues sometimes. And this technology is also not phishing proof. It's not very strong in terms of authenticating users. So hardware tokens, right? We all know this, YubiKeys and some other open source tools, and Google has some. So you can have either connected tokens or you can have roaming tokens, which is basically using certificates or one-time tokens or one-time passwords behind the scenes. Some vendors go as far as making it multi-factor, right? They can sometimes embed biometric sensors in them, but that's also very complicated to use and enroll, and oftentimes this is used as a second factor in addition to username and password. WebAuthn and FIDO. This is the recent standard that's been getting a lot of visibility in the identity space. The big push happened when Apple, Google, and some other major browsers adopted this standard. What that actually does in simple terms, it allows creates an API in the browser that lets an application to talk to a biometric sensor on a mobile device, right? You open a laptop, open your Chrome browser, navigate to application, and then you authenticate with your thumbprint scanner on your laptop, right? Phenomenal technology. It's been picked up by many companies. There's a lot of blog posts about it, and it's actually the right way to do things today. However, this technology has two major shortcomings, right? One is enrollment, and the other one is recovery, right? Before you can use this, you have to enroll somehow, and you have to recover. What if you lose your device? What happens then, right? So this has not been standardized. The industry is working towards that direction, but for authentication piece, FIDO and FIDO2 is actually working really well. And the last one that's becoming more visible these days, which is directly related to passwordless MFA, is using your mobile phone or mobile device as an authenticator. We all have this device, right? We all use it for payments. We all use it for other use cases. Why don't we use it for authenticating and accessing resources as part of a workplace, right? Phones have progressed enough so that they can actually provide very secure mechanisms for certificate storage. Like a lot of the phones today have a separate compute and storage for storing crypto certificates, which is called hardware-backed storage. They also are all enabled with biometric sensors, which make them very good candidates, very convenient and user-friendly tool to access various resources. So this is a quick overview, right? I did not list things like password managers and single sign-on tools, right? Because historically, these tools have been augmenting passwords, but they have not been completely eliminating them, right? But again, some might even count these tools as tools to improve passwords and move one step closer to password elimination. So this was a good overview, right? But then I think the question you guys should be asking in a real world scenario, is authentication enough, right? And all these tools that I showed you right now, they're all focused on logging the users in. So oftentimes, if you attend the vendor demonstration or you look at some promotional videos, you will see a user opening a laptop and then authenticating with a biometric sensor. That's awesome, right? But unfortunately, the answer is just looking at authentication is not enough. And we at Idemeum suggest and advise our customers and partners to look at the passwordless lifecycle holistically, right? What is your employee journey going to be from start to finish? And we as a company recommend to focus on 4 steps, right? So the first one is verifying identity. This is very simple. Who is the employee? Before I can use my YubiKey or before I can use my mobile device, how do I prove my identity? Who am I, right? And how do you do this in the remote setting, right? We all moved to remote environment. We all have global teams. If you hire someone remotely, how do you actually verify the user's identity? And oftentimes, right, what vendors don't tell you, you basically go and send them credentials, right? You send them password and you have no way of knowing who is actually using these passwords. But then if you use passwords and then enroll into FIDO, how is this a passwordless technology, right? It's a chicken and egg problem. The second thing is onboarding. Once I verify my identity, once I know it's actually Nikolai and he's proven his identity, how do I onboard into my organization? How do I start getting access to all the resources? And most importantly, what do I get access to, right? Do I access only web apps? Do I access my VPN? Do I access my VDI resources? How do I actually onboard and get access to everything I need? The third one is what we talked about, right? With all the technologies, and that's where the marketing focus is today, is your authentication piece, right? How does an employee, how does she log in into these resources? The key factor here to look into is how do you do this across various devices and application and resource types, right? What's possible to do with WebAuthn on your laptop and Chrome browser might not necessarily be possible on Safari and on iOS device, right? Because standards might differ and the flows might be different. So oftentimes when you look at passwordless technology or you evaluate certain vendors, it's always a great thing to look into what sort of platforms are supported and how does it even work across various device types. And the last one, which we think is extremely critical, is recovery, right? How do you recover when you lose your device? Unfortunately, that's what we talked about with FIDO, right? WebAuthn. If I lose my certificate, what happens after that? If I lose my FIDO key, what happens after that? And so far, passwordless has been very complicated and challenging because of recovery phase, right? Because you still have to resort to passwords, so you have to verify identity somehow. So that's how we see the passwordless life cycle, and that's when we embraced on the journey of building a platform. We put this as a fundamental principle. How do you enable passwordless journey holistically for an employee? So now let's look at the journey, right? This is a very simple view, right? Not to give you any complexity of all the tools, but again, we can go as deep as necessary. But this is a real world example. How would an organization progress from a point of using passwords to something where the passwords don't exist in the environment? And again, this is heavily dependent on the staffing level of an organization, the vertical, the industry, and the maturity of the systems that are being used in place. So when we engage with our customers, we typically map the company maturity across 2 axes, right? How secure the organization wants to be and what sort of user experience does it want to enable. So that's a classic dilemma, right? Security is always between your actual security and the user experience for your users or employees. And this is what we discovered, right, is applicable in real world scenarios. First, you start with a password manager. right? That's a table stakes, in our opinion, for every organization to use a password manager. Why is that important, right? Not every of the applications that you have or resources is going to have SAML or OpenID Connect, so you can connect it to your single sign-on provider. You're not going to control every single application that's being used in your organization. There's always going to be something that's purchased by HR department or finance department that they can start using for their needs, right? And password managers, even though they don't eliminate passwords, they actually reduce the attack surface on the passwords for various reasons. And one of them is actually you enable your employees to very simply use strong passwords, right? You can let them generate very strong, complex passwords and autofill them for certain applications. So that's why password managers as a product, even though being commoditized in the space, they've been getting a lot of traction in the business space because they provide this table stakes experience. The next level is your single sign-on, right? Once organization progresses to a certain level, it decides to implement single sign-on. A challenge with single sign-on is that most of the applications will require an upgrade to actually be able to use single sign-on, right? For instance, if you're using Slack on a Plus version, right, to connect it to your identity provider, you would need to upgrade to enterprise version, right? And for large organizations, it can be cost prohibitive sometimes to do this. But single sign-on is where all the organizations go eventually, and then they deploy certain vendors to basically centralize application access, right? You access your application, you get redirected to your single sign-on provider, and you authenticate with a certain set of credentials. As you can see, we mapped single sign-on as improving user experience, but not necessarily security, right? Some people can challenge us on this, but we believe that single sign-on as a simple feature is not actually improving security much, even though you change your authentication model based on trust, but at the same time, you still log into applications with password. And now you actually centralized everything behind a single password. And now your attack surface is very pointed, right? If I compromise one password, I can actually get access to everything for that user. So it just gives users great convenience. It enables admin teams to centrally enforce policies and control everything, but might not necessarily boost your security posture for an organization. So the third step, right, that we've all witnessed in 2021 because of COVID and remote work is the huge proliferation of MFA. I think now every single person, probably not even technical person, probably knows what MFA is all about, right? And everyone started quickly rolling out, if not having it already, but basically doing MFA everywhere, right? Not just for apps, but resources, VPNs, everything to make sure the remote work is secure. As you can see, classic MFA makes your organization more secure because you have to challenge, right, user for additional push or OTP or something else. But user experience is actually degrading quite a bit, right? Because now for me to log in, I have to get my phone, I have to get the token, I have to paste it in, maybe it's not going to be auto-filled, right? And for me as a modern worker, right, I expect agility in the workplace. I expect very seamless experience. And if I have to pick up that token every single time, right, it's not very convenient for me. This is where most organizations end today, and this is what probably is the current state for a lot of organizations in the world today. The next level is what we call as a passwordless single sign-on, right? It's taking your infrastructure and replacing your username and password with the passwordless MFA as we discussed, right? Now, every time I access my web applications, I can actually access them with biometrics and certificates. Nothing to type, no separate apps, no credentials to rotate. It's all powered by biometrics. And if you pick a proper passwordless MFA product, right, it should be very seamless to connect this to your identity provider and make things passwordless. And the last, number 5, right, is actually moving beyond just single sign-on, and choosing a passwordless MFA vendor that can help you connect to various other resources, right? It's not just a single sign-on product that I log into as an employee. Oftentimes I access my VPN, right? I have certain on-premise applications that I need to access as a developer. I access my cloud resources that are gated by certain firewalls, right? I access my VDI resources. And the strength of an MFA comes from an ability to integrate with various tools that are applicable in the enterprise. Right, this is what we noticed is a trajectory the companies take when they move towards passwordless experience. Of course, right, this slide is not talking about zero trust, conditional access, continuous authentication, and many other things that we are all seeing in the marketplace, right? But the intention for this was just to abstract all the complexity and show you very simply what is the journey that an organization can take to simply move towards a state where passwords can be eliminated from the workplace. Now, as you can see, right, this is quite a number of things that an organization has to digest, and oftentimes these are going to be various vendors offering you these products, and sometimes it might be quite challenging to integrate them all, right? Separate MFA, separate single sign-on, separate password manager, and maybe separate passwordless technology. So sometimes it can be very challenging. So this is these last couple slides are about our company, right? And why Jagjit, myself, and other team members have even embraced on this journey, right? We decided to build a platform that actually combines all these products in one and helps organizations to move towards password elimination in a very seamless way. So the way we build a platform is that it actually combines all these products in one, right? It helps an organization to manage passwords securely through a password manager that we built. It helps an organization to manage logins into various resources through a passwordless MFA, as we discussed. And it helps an organization to manage applications with SAML identity provider, automated provisioning, cloud directory, and many other things such as entitlements and group provisioning and all the things that we've built into this platform. The idea for us was that this is a modular platform, right? It can be easily overlaid on top of an existing platform, or some organizations who are embracing on the journey of building a proper identity infrastructure, they can actually progress with the full platform as they go. So now what I wanted to do is just to quickly show you a very simple use case, right? I wanted to quickly demo it to you. It is quite powerful, right? It's very simple. It's something that every organization faces, and it actually touches all the identity lifecycle stages that we discussed with you, right? Identity verification, onboarding, authentication, and recovery. Right? So that simple use case is employee onboarding. This is something that we all do as an organization, right? So say we hire an employee, and the classic world today, right from the get-go, IT team is having these challenges, right? How do I send passwords? How do I ask an employee to enable MFA, right? How do I verify identity? How do I know who is onboarded? How do I make sure that they log in into all the resources that they need, right? This is just the first step. Instead of doing all this, right, we just ask an employee to install a mobile app, and that's all, right? And basically verify identity. So Mike, as a new employee, Mike installs a mobile app, and right from the mobile app, Mike can verify his identity, right? The identity verification can take multiple forms. Mike can verify his email, his phone number, his driver's license. Organization can decide what sort of assurance organization needs to onboard Mike, right? Which wasn't quite possible before with the passwords, if the password technology is used. So financial organization might decide to use high level of assurance and ask Mike to verify driver's license before Mike can access resources. Organization that's focused on user experience can ask Mike to verify phone number, right? That's something he always has with him, and that's very simple. And every organization has that information either in HR system or payroll. The second thing is onboarding, right? Instead of going and typing in credentials and then resetting passwords and then enrolling into MFA. All Mike is doing, Mike is just quickly going and scanning a QR code to onboard into organization, right? As you can see, enrollment is self-driven. It's actually employee-driven, right? And then when that happens, identity can be verified using various sources. For some customers, we connect to HR systems, right? And we say, hey, if Mike is verified this personal phone number, does that personal phone number exist in Workday, or does that personal number exist in ADP? And the other option, we can also serve as a cloud directory, much like other identity providers do, where we can verify this information right in our platform. And once that happens, Mike is going to just have access to all the applications. They can be provisioned. This can be a set of password applications or single sign-on applications or other things, right? And then Mike can now access everything without passwords. As you can see, this is quite a different experience for an organization. It is actually user-driven. It does not involve any work from IT side to distribute or manage passwords, and it eliminates all the complexity from an employee to be able to access all the resources. Now, whenever Mike is going to be terminated or he moves to a different organization, all that's necessary is just to disable access. And if Mike loses phone for some reason, I'll show you later, Mike can just self-recover using a QR code that he saved, or IT team can just, with the click of a button, recover all the password applications and all the SAML applications, so nothing has to be reprovisioned right from admin console. So let's take a quick look, right? That's quite a mouthful of information that I shared, but here's my phone, right? I'm a new employee and I was welcomed to an organization, right? What I do, I actually install a mobile app, and it's not just an authenticator like you would see with other vendors, right? I can actually start verifying some of my personal information. As you can see, I verified my email address and I verified my phone number. Optionally, I can actually go and verify driver's license or passport, depending on the country of residence. Once that information is verified, it's actually stored on my phone. It is tied to my crypto keys and it's tied to biometrics on my device. So it actually becomes my digital identity that I can use to access all company resources. So this was an identity verification part. Now, as an employee, I go to a company portal, right? The typical experience you would see is you have to enter username and password. Instead, this time you see the QR code. What I do with this mobile app, I scan this QR code, and now I'm presented with an approval screen, very similar to what a push MFA or something else would present you with. Once I click approve, I am going to do a multi-factor authentication, right? First, I'm going to be doing Face ID, which is my biometric factor, and then I'm going to be doing my certificate-based authentication to access all the resources. Once I do this, I get onboarded into an organization and I immediately have access to everything I need, right? Ranging from password application, SAML applications, VPN resources, Wi-Fi, and everything that's available for the user, right? So if I can actually go, I can start accessing my SAML applications, such as Salesforce or anything that my company pre-configured for me, right? And this can be OpenID Connect, or this can be SAML applications, basically having this centralized, pre-configured by admin. Or I can start accessing my password applications, right? I can actually launch something, immediately autofill credentials, and access to all the resources I need without ever typing a thing, right? That's where the password manager comes in, right? As you can see, there's a convenient access from a browser extension or from the user portal. The big difference is that why we call the passwordless password manager is when typically you would use a password manager, you would have a master password. And what we've heard from some of our customers is that's quite annoying, right? You type it every single time. If you want it to be secure, you have to lock it. So for us, master password does not exist, right? Everything is powered by biometrics. Now, as you can see right in the mobile app, I also have the same set of applications, and I can access everything conveniently on the mobile device. This is to our point of cross-platform experience, right? If I go and I want to access my OpenVPN, right? I click on login, and I'm going to be authenticated in the same way, right? I click login with Idemeum, I approve with biometrics, and now I can choose a profile, and I can choose a system where I want to be connected. So the same applies to VPN, the same applies to VDI and others. So that completes the demo, right? And I wanted to summarize, right? What I showed you today is the modern way of complete password elimination, right? It takes time and it takes a journey for organization to progress towards this way. But what I showed you is how we actually built all the familiar tools and enabled them to go passwordless to enable this seamless and frictionless user experience. So I think that is completing our presentation and everything what we wanted to discuss. Maybe we can open it up for questions right now.
Perfect. Sounds good. We still have like 8 minutes left. We had a slot till 11:50. So yeah, guys, if you want to ask any question, please go ahead, raise your hand. I'll unmute you. And meanwhile, I think there are a lot of questions on chat that Jagjit has been answering. So Jagjit, any specific question you want to pick from the chat and debate on that, and we can discuss that?
Yeah, I think the most recent question, that Arnav asked, seems this technology can be used to access only apps, not access to servers and network assets. Nick, do you want to give an answer on this one?
Yes. So as I said, so today we can access web resources, web applications. We can access VPNs that support SAML connections. Shortly, we're going to be releasing the Cloud Radius product that will open the door to accessing Wi-Fi networking infrastructure and other things that support Radius. And the other thing that we're working on right now is actually doing login into desktops, Windows, Mac, using the same technology, right? You open up your laptop and you log in with the passwordless MFA. So this is relevant for organizations that want high assurance for accessing devices as well.
Right, and just to basically answer whether we'll have access to servers and network assets, yes, we are actually working towards this as well, in addition to desktop logins and VPN and Wi-Fi's.
Awesome, sounds good. So we have few folks, those who have raised their hand to ask questions. So Maheshji, go ahead, ask your question, please. Maheshji, unmute yourself and you can ask your question. Yeah, great. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, okay. So how do we, if a simple question, how do we, remove the device if I lost my device, right? So how do I ensure that my device is secure and no one else is, able to misuse it?
Yeah. So let me share this with you, right? If I quickly share this screen so I can show you an app. Phenomenal question. I'm really glad you asked it. So we spend a lot of time on security and recovery. As I showed you, we have two options, right? The first option, when the user installs an app, he's given a recovery code, very similar to what a password manager would do, right? So user has two options. He can save this recovery code in photos or print it and save it in secure location, or I can save it to iCloud, for instance, or Google Drive. If I lose my device, but I still have this recovery code, I can recover everything just by scanning it, right? All my password apps, all my SAML apps, everything is going to be recovered. If an organization wants to protect this and protect against losing this QR code, we provide an option for admin recovery, right? If I go to admin portal, I have all my users who are using this as an admin. I can actually click, this is the ID of every user. I can actually click and recover a device for the user, very simple. And the same fashion, if you want to block a device, you can just offboard the user and block a device. Every device gets the unique identifier. So we take this from the centralized identity spec, DID. So every device gets a certificate and unique DID. So you can disable the device on demand if you want to offboard the user manually. I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Great question. Shitanshu Bhai, you are next. Go ahead, unmute yourself, ask your question, please. And you gotta be fast.
Hello. Hi.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So my question was on the passwords, and I think Nick answered this with the very first question that it is going to cover other assets apart of applications and
Perfect.
systems. So
Great.
thank
So
you.
Sure. Thanks. Let's move to the next one. Gunjan Bhai, go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah. Hey Nick, thanks. Great session. Quick question. So the domain authentication that users do on the laptop, that still remains. This comes in once user wants to log into the applications, right?
Yeah. So again, that depends on what you want to enable, right? Typically, most organizations would use MDM. We also offer integrating with MDMs, right? So say you ship your employee a laptop, you open up a laptop, and instead of seeing username and password, you can enroll into MDM with the mobile app as well, right? We support that. This is basically out of the box enrollment. Some of the organizations don't do this, right? They prefer user enrollment, so they ship them a laptop, they create local account protected with a biometric, and then they install this mobile app. Again, this is a flexible platform that, depending on your use case, we support various things that you can log into with our mobile app. I hope that's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, and follow up on this is that do you let's say we have a lot of custom-based web applications. Do you integrate with those only, or only SaaS-based application is what gets integrated here in this?
Jagjit, do you want to take this?
Yeah, I mean, we do basically support like protocols like SAML and OIDC to integrate with this with these applications. And if these applications do not basically support any of these protocols, then we recommend basically a passwordless password manager, where we build the whole password manager using the client-side cryptography, which means we do not get to see your passwords. Your passwords basically are protected with your own private keys, and that keys resides on your mobile devices. So even if our cloud gets breached for any reason, there are no keys that can basically decrypt the password. And even, in fact, even Idemeum does not even get to see your password. I mean, we do not have any keys on the cloud that we can decrypt your passwords.
Okay.
But maybe to add to this, right? If you meant like giving you SDKs that you can put into your custom apps, no, we don't do that, right? So we connect either using SAML, OpenID Connect, or we can autofill passwords for that application. 3 methods of connecting with apps.
Perfect. Sounds good. Let's move to the next question, please. Now, Anilji, go ahead, ask your question.
In whole our organization, suppose we want to go for the passwordless entry to our desktop and laptops. So in that case, this is just like changing a culture in the organization. Now, to change any culture, do you have some implementation team who can support us to do this? And again, what is the cost involved in this?
Yeah, so to answer this question simply, we work with every organization on a case-by-case basis. That's why we showed you the journey. Everyone, because of COVID, understands what MFA is and the benefit of it. So what we typically do with the customers first is we enable single sign-on, passwordless single sign-on. That's very intuitive for people to access. Typically, we work with organizations in enabling this on a very short.
This will be for all the applications, or just say, for example, I am going to log in to my desktop. Okay, so this will be done through some device you will be providing, I think. Okay, again, I want to log in into some browser. Say, for example, I am going to simple login into Amazon. Okay, so everything will be clubbed into a single password, or what? How it will work?
Yeah, it depends. It depends on what you want. You can enable it for certain users. You can enable it for certain groups. You can enable it for certain applications. Some customers, before going live, they do a POC with us. They pick a test group of users, and they say, okay, we only do this for 5 users for these 5 apps, and they test it for some time. Once they're satisfied with our product, they roll it out for all the apps. Once they're satisfied with all the apps, they roll it out to devices, and basically one step at a time. You completely mentioned it correctly. It's a change, and it actually is taken step by step, right? But we've been working with various companies on how to approach this on a step-by-step basis. We have not recommended anyone to do this, basically flip the switch. It's always a step-by-step process.
Okay. Fine, thank you.
Great. Next, Amit-ji, go ahead. Please ask your question.
Thanks, Vikas. Sorry. My apologies. Go ahead, Amit.
Yeah. Sorry. Abhijit, you are after Mr. Amit. So it is Amit Bhatia that I see on the queue first. So Amit-ji, you go ahead first, and then Abhijit, I'll unmute you. Thank you.
My apologies, Vikas.
Sure. Thank you, Nick. Thanks, Jagjit, for giving insight about the technology, which is going to change the authentication landscape in near future, and also wonderfully explain the employee's journey, on the password authentication. But my query is more on the other side, being a CISO, many of the applications are just not plumb to the passwordless, because identity authentication is traditionally fragmented into their landscape. Also, modern applications are hosted in the cloud, and we mostly across the world we are using SaaS-based applications, although they use identity protocols like OpenID and SAML. But there is a perception that one size doesn't fit all the approach. So how do you address this practicality?
So I think our goal is to provide you with as many connectors as possible. You can also take on this. If cloud application supports OpenID and SAML, we can connect to it, no issues. If your application supports Radius or password-based application, we can connect to it, right? We haven't moved to a point where we do LDAP or some other protocols, but again, if we see enough demand, we can always explore these areas. Today, we connect using SAML, OpenID Connect, passwords, and Radius. These are the 4 interfaces we provide in terms of applications.
And what's your experience on the people, on the customers who are using primarily AWS or a Microsoft Cloud and using SaaS-based application? Is it integrate well?
Yes, so we support various providers. We have deployments with Azure AD and Okta primarily. Like Okta is super simple. Azure AD is a little bit more complicated, right? Depends on deployment. Because there's all these dance with immutable ID, object ID, and whatnot, right? So we support pure cloud, and we can support hybrid with Active Directory Connect. We didn't do any deployments with the ADFS yet, but again, it depends on the deployment and it depends on the use case. So we haven't quite come these deployments, but we support cloud deployments quite well with Okta and Azure AD.
Sure, Nick. Thank you.
Great question, Amit Bhai. Abhijit ji, go ahead. Ask your question now, please.
Thanks, Vikas. Nick, thanks for the great session. I have 2 queries, and for the first query, you have partially answered with respect to MDM solution. However, what we can see is like the entire identification is based on a mobile device, right? So what if a mobile device gets compromised? I mean, have you come across any use case where a mobile device has got compromised and that led to the compromise of the entire infrastructure? So that's one question. Second question is there any use case for integration of this solution with the SIEM tool? I mean, are there any features or logs which could get generated and can get integrated with SIEM tool? I mean, for some sort of use cases. So these are the 2 questions I have.
Phenomenal questions. So security is really top of mind. We've spent a ton of time on security. We do pen testing and everything. We published a great white paper on our security portal. You can take a look that details everything. The idea is that we assess devices before we even let our application install, right? We only support devices that have trusted execution environment or Strongbox, right? We don't let devices store crypto keys and software. Then we do integrate with Google Safety Net, and we do integrate with attestation service for iOS, right? We basically leverage every tool possible for a mobile device to make sure that it's a safe environment. If the device is compromised, jailbroken or something, we wouldn't let it install. In fact, some customers even told us, hey, can you relax the security requirements? Because we have employees using jailbroken devices and we're okay with that. And we had to relax some of our requirements. But our golden rule is that before application even installs, we're going to check the security posture. So that's the first question. And the second thing is we don't integrate with SIM tools yet today, but again, this is something we explore. If you go to integrations.idemeum.com, this is where we maintain all our integrations. We basically detail how to integrate with various applications, VPNs, etc. This is where we basically have today. We have like 200 plus integrations for all the things, and we're quickly building them. But it's, to be honest, the first time we've heard that audit logging. But again, it's not something we can't explore.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. Now let's go to Viraji. Viraji, quick question and quick answer, please, because we are closing. We are getting towards the end.
Yeah, sure. Great session. A simple question for infrastructure elements like databases. If the use case is that there is a life cycle management of the accounts where people come in and we don't disable them and they moved on to other jobs or whatever. Do you have use cases where your solution brings value with the entire lifecycle management?
Maybe Jagjit can help me with this. Today, lifecycle management is centered around cloud apps, right? We do three things. We can do JIT, we can do SCIM, and we can do custom connectors, right? We primarily focus for lifecycle management for SaaS apps, and we did not explore anything related to infrastructure. But again, if you have any ideas you can share with us, we can also explore.
Yeah, if you could get in touch with me and I can explain in more detail the situation. Jagjit, if you can.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you can note, yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Great. Last question, I believe, coming from Chennai chapter member, Sarvana Kumarji, please go ahead, ask your question.
Hi, Nick and Jai. It's a good session. You guys are talking about the current things about the password things. So I just want to know on your solution, it's going to be a cloud-based solution. I could understand that. So I just want to know whether in your solution, whether we can able to track the geo-based restrictions, because most of the roaming users, if my business predominantly it's within the geographical, so I can restrict the users to be within that boundary itself. So instead of that, I can rest any solutions you have within your solution, any features, geo-based restriction of access, even though it's a legitimate user, he cannot access beyond that one.
Yes. So the short answer is yes, right? In fact, philosophically, we wanted to kind of not do this because that violates the principles of zero trust, like when zero trust was introduced beyond corp and everything, right? The idea is that regardless of where you are, you still authenticate and you take device context and all the things. This is visionary of where we're going. But we really want to respond and be listening to our customers. Some customers have been asking, and the feature we're working on right now is basically geolocation anomaly. If you log in from a mobile device, and we basically take geolocation from mobile device and we take geolocation from browser. If those are very far, we're going to basically flag this as a suspicious login. So that's the first case you're addressing. If you're talking about conditional policies for like IP address and geolocation, should be very easy for us, but we haven't explored that yet. But again, we can always explore.
Yeah, because Great. Why that use case is very handy today. Sorry, because no you guys are predominantly depends on the mobile is one of the authentication mechanism. In case my mobile is compromised or theft, and intelligent, because the intruders, the attackers are always 3 to 4 times smarter than us. They can get into my mobile, and then they can get into access of any of the access applications which I have authorized to do that one. So at least the geo-based one, suddenly within couple of hours or within a short period, my mobile is get authenticated in particular geolocation, and the same mobile from there we got a different location within couple of hours with a different part of the geographical. So then it creates a chaos, right? So it creates an what kind of an uncertainty arises. So that kind of restrictions will also able to identify and it's basically more on a track and trace mechanism.
Correct. Yeah,
Great,
this
great.
is super inspiring. Highly appreciate this because that's the feedback that we really looking for, and this is important for us that you guys are bringing these up, and we'll certainly discuss with the team on how we can look into some of these areas.
Awesome. So it's 12 o'clock. We cannot take more questions. I saw a couple of folks had raised hand, but we cannot take more questions because it's already 12 o'clock. So I will quickly rush it towards the end in terms of closing. So guys, the certificate, the participation certificate that you see on the screen, if you want to download that, what you got to do is go to EliteCISOs website, click on events, click on upcoming events, and click on CP certificate. This will take you to a Google form. Put your email address, put your full name, and the secret to download the certificate is Microsoft. OK, why Microsoft? Because next week we have a session with Microsoft. As you know, EliteCISO, we conduct these online sessions every week on Thursday, 11 o'clock. So next week we have an excellent speaker coming from Microsoft, Mr. Anil, and he will talk about unifying multi-cloud security with Microsoft. So it'll be interesting session to see how Microsoft is talking about, integrating different clouds from a security perspective. So go ahead and register for it, guys. The first 100 people to register for it will be part of Wheel of Fortune. OK, because see, if you look at this one, we got like 400 registration and everybody's on this list over here. And about 225 people joined the session today. So next time for next week, we will not clutter the Wheel of Fortune. What we'll do is we'll only put first 100 people who are going to register for this session, right? So if you just click on register, this will take you to a different form. So guys, the important one this time, the single click and register, right? The email that comes that, OK, just click and you are registered, that will not work because Microsoft has got a different privacy policy of opt out, right? So traditionally what you have to do is you have to click on the checkbox that's opt in. Microsoft said, no, we have to have an opt out. So you have to fill this form. There is no automated email that will come. All the people who will register will get a separate confirmation and a link to join. And I think there was a question in terms of somebody was asking, can you add us into the EliteCISO group? So guys, if you are not EliteCISO member, what you can do is you can click on membership. You can fill this particular form. Membership is free of cost. There is no cost to it. And we only add corporate CIOs and CISOs, right? So if you're a corporate CIO CISO, you can go ahead and fill it, and then we will add you to a city specific WhatsApp group. That's how the membership and the group works. If you are not CIO CISO, but if you would like to receive EliteCISOs update, you can simply subscribe to our newsletter and you will receive all the invites for the events and all that we deliver. With this, I'm kind of rushing because we got to do 5 spins today. 2 spin are going to be for all the people who registered, and 3 spin will be for folks who liked EliteCISO's post on LinkedIn. If you support us, we support you, right? So that's how it is. So I'm going to spin it. If your name comes, go to the chat and say, yes, you are in the session. Good luck, guys. I'm spinning it now. You will see the LinkedIn one, how less cluttered that is, right? So let's see. Spinning for the first one now, and I'm monitoring the chat as well. So the Mr. First one is Amit Dhawan, my very good friend. Mr. Amit Dhawan, I think I saw your name in the attendee list. So if you are there in the session, Amit Bhai, please go to the chat and say, yes, you are in the session. I don't see any yes coming as yet. I'm sure one of your friends will be calling you that your name came in, but never mind. I am spinning it for the second time now. The first one is already gone. For the second one, the giveaway again is smartwatches. The second one goes to Upkarji, both the members from Delhi chapter. Upkarji, if you are there, go to the chat and say, yes, you are in the session. I still don't see any yes coming into the chat. Now 2 spins for all the members are done, those who registered. Now I'm going to post only the people who liked and commented on LinkedIn for the post. So you see how less cluttered this is, and there are going to be 3 spin for it. Spinning for the third count now. The third one is Ashok sir, Ashok Kumar sir, my very dear friend, my mentor. I have a huge respect for Ashok ji. Ashok ji, if you are there, please go to the chat and say yes. Upkar ji, I've seen that has said yes, so that's great. Ashok ji, I still don't see. Maybe my chat is loading a little slow. Ashok ji is not there. I'm spinning it for the fourth one now. Again, all the names coming from Delhi chapter today. Jai from Mumbai. Very nice. Jai bhai, if you are there, go to the chat and say yes. Jai bhai, are you there? Yes, Jai bhai is there. Awesome. Congratulations, Jai bhai. We'll take the address and send the smartwatch. The last one, 12:06, guys. I'm sorry we got a little late today. The last one goes to Sarveswara Rao, member from Chennai chapter. Just Sarveswara, if you are there, go to the chat and say yes. No, I don't think he's there. Great. With this, all these spins are done. Thank you very much, Idemeum team, for joining and sharing your knowledge around passwordless authentication. Thanks to all the participants for joining. Really appreciate you guys taking out time and joining. See you guys next week on what's the date? 21st, Thursday, 11 o'clock. Great. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.